So for us, the land is sentient, and that has the computation power to be able to know where we're supposed to be going. And because we're in the landscape and we're embedded in it and we're of it, and it's like the big parent, then that's what you do. So constantly, it's all about being in constant communication with your context. We'll call it context for in English, but you're in communication with the landscape, which is being in communication with your ancestors.
Well, Tyson, this is really interesting then, because it does come to this question, right? How do you know what you know, or how do you know anything? I mean, how does one know anything? Because in a society or a social or an absence of a certain kind of reliability, right, because of kinship ties or all these ways of how do we know what we know? You have, near the end of the book, I think you actually articulate this really well, or at least from your frame of I suppose, is this an Indigenous way of knowing? That there's 4 criteria, right, that you talked about how you know something, or how can you come to know or trust something. And I just wonder if you could articulate that a little bit, like how do we apply some sort of practice of coming to arrive at meaning?
That's just it. I mean, we don't have the computation power for that. Our species doesn't have it. No species has it. But the aggregate of all the species together, they have it. So in our way, the land is sentient, which I guess if you're looking from a Western scientific perspective, it's like, all right, well, a landscape and ecosystem, it's a dynamic self-organizing system, and it's got all these nodes and they connect like neurons. And so I guess you could think of it as being an intelligent system, because it does seem to, throw up, big sort of self-organized responses, like immune responses, in your body and things like that. Your system will do that. So for us, the land is sentient, and that has the computation power to be able to know where we're supposed to be going. And because we're in the landscape and we're embedded in it and we're of it, and it's like the big parent, then that's what you do. So constantly, it's all about being in constant communication with your context. We'll call it context for in English, but you're in communication with the landscape, which is being in communication with your ancestors, human and non-human. You're in constant communication with these things, and that's not prayer or anything, or like hearing voices like Joan of Arc. You're not doing that and receiving your special task or dharma or bloody whatever you think, because you're not particularly that special. But as a group of people, you receive an aggregate of signals. This person saw that flock of birds behaving weirdly. This person saw 2 snakes going there. The air pressure has changed. This tree's flowering early this year. The salmon run hasn't arrived yet. So we're all sitting down together and going, what's that land? What's that feeling we're getting? So we're collectively interpreting the landscape and hearing that signal. And if you're embedded in the landscape, then it becomes sort of automatic almost. It's almost automated. But then you've got your you've got your actuaries there too, which is your elders, who are like because the land is how the land thinks is a bit of a black box for most of us, but they kind of know what's going on in the black box, and so they have that authority of being able to say, yeah, well, this happened about 8,336 years ago. Same thing happened. You know what I mean? Some people responded like this, and they all died, and then some people responded like this, and they thrived. So, and then everybody. So they don't have the power of bossing everybody, but that's when everyone goes, okay. So all these signs and that elder knowledge, and then clearly our path is this. And it sort of works like that. But, the problem is that doesn't scale for 1 million people. You've got 150, 200 people, responding according to that bioregion. But then you've got this sort of collective of collectives, all those tribes and all those bioregions. They're doing their own thing in each place, and they're self-determining. But then often there have to be collective things as well, So there's kind of like there's bigger collections of like tribes of tribes, if that makes any sense. So the governance scales fractally, across the whole continent like that. Well, traditionally, that's how that worked. So that's how those responses have always happened. But it's not really possible to do it like that now. We're in a mess.
What if we need to?
I hope that gives an idea of what yarning is. Like yarning, it's not just a conversation and all these kinds of things. It's you're in a state of deep listening with the others, human and non-human around you, and the environment. It's all these inputs coming in. Yeah.